Hey everyone, Rascal here.
And Mama, welcome to our podcast.
Today we're going down memory lane of one of America's most iconic comic strips, Peanuts.
Created by Charles Schulz, the lovable characters have lived on for many years in the form of comic strips, toys, television specials, and movies. We'll dive into the rich history of these nutty kids. Football head!
Who doesn't know Peanuts at this point? It's so well known for decades that no matter what age a person is, they're gonna know Peanuts.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna see it everywhere. You're gonna see it on TV during the holidays. You're gonna hear the references, the parodies, the internet. The internet memes. It's everywhere. It's Peanuts madness.
Yes, this is one of the longest running franchises in history as far as animation. And as you said, you can even see influences in shows, diverse live action animated, even in the Loud House, where there's a lamp that's painted like Charlie Brown's shirt. So, Peanuts has definitely made an impact on pop culture through the decades, which is pretty much unheard of for any other franchise that's animated.
Right.
So we'll tell a little bit of history about Charles Schulz very briefly. This was based on a comic strip that ran from October 2nd, 1950, yes, 1950, to February 13, 2000, continuing reruns afterwards. And this particular comic strip is among the most popular in history, with over 17,000 strips published, as it's being described. And it's being translated into 21 languages, shown in 75 countries, earned Charles Schulz over $1 billion during his lifetime. And he really, really loved his work. I do remember, I remember hearing when he died, because the day prior to that, he announced his retirement and said that he was retiring from doing Peanuts and any of the work. And the very next day on the news, it said he was dead. He really, really loved his work so much, but I guess maybe his subconscious or his body just thought, okay, that means you're done if you're finishing with this, because Peanuts was his life. But I'm truly, truly grateful for all that he's given us in these characters and life lessons and values and fun. And I can't think of hardly any movie or comic strip or holiday special where you don't see that fun and that love that he had for the characters. So,
and you can see the comic strip in the newspaper depending on your provider. You actually can see it every Sunday, whether it's the reruns from the later series where you see the iconic designs, or back when it was still fairly new and they actually looked pretty different. Also, another point of his pop culture status is that every year the same 4 specials go up on TV. You have the Charlie Brown Christmas, it airs every December. You have the Charlie Brown Thanksgiving in November. It's the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown in October. And Happy New Year Charlie Brown at the beginning of every new year.
And we watch them every year like we've never seen them before.
Right.
Even though we own them all.
Right.
We still watch them.
Right. You act like it's a whole new story every single time, and it's just the same special and the same outcome.
I think not only is it a tradition for most people, but there's no other way to describe it. Watching these holiday specials make you feel home. You feel like you're home, because, as you said, just about no matter how old you are, it's starting in the 50s. You've got so many generations where this is just being part of their lives, and it has defined some point in their life. And probably most people can remember the first time that they watched one of the Charlie Brown specials, or how old they were, or where they were, who they're with, because it's made that much of a difference. And then in addition to those specials, as you mentioned, you've got a lot of others they made, like Snoopy Come Home, Race for Your Life, Charlie Brown, Bon Voyage, Charlie Brown, and Don't Come Back.
And they had a couple series
Mm-hmm.
where it was the Charlie Brown Snoopy show or just the Charlie Brown show,
Mm-hmm.
and they also gave quite a bit of spotlight movies to Snoopy, as you said, in Snoopy Come Home, where he went to find his original owner, who was a sick little girl, and they were wondering if he was gonna leave for good.
Bittersweet. Yeah.
Right. And Boy Named Charlie Brown was almost like the origin story of
Mm-hmm.
Charlie Brown, like his first adventures in there in the comics adapted into a little TV special.
Mm-hmm.
And the other two you mentioned, Race for Your Life, Charlie Brown, and Bon Voyage, Charlie Brown Don't Come Back, were actually pretty hard to find movies on DVD or because they were on VHS at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and you actually couldn't find them online. And we've also actually seen both of them. They're actually pretty good movies that we're surprised that aren't shown a lot on TV anymore, like the holiday specials.
And we've been pretty fortunate because I think we own just about every one of the specials and the made-for-TV movies. So
Right.
we've been really lucky in finding these things. Sometimes not even looking for them. We see them, oh my gosh, we got to buy it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I bought it, or we bought it if we've been together. And then finally there was the Peanuts movie, which we can discuss later. So let's talk a little about the characters
Yes.
first. We've got, of course, the namesake Charlie Brown.
Right, and we were thinking maybe Brown was maybe a middle name or something. No, his full name is Charlie Brown, and it's not. You can't just call him Charlie. You have to call him Charlie Brown, or else it won't sound right. The blockhead football boy who can't win a baseball game to save his life. You have his beagle Snoopy, who is one of the most iconic dogs ever.
Mm-hmm.
Snoopy's very lovable, and his own little sidekick Woodstock, who you can't understand because he speaks bird. All you see is lines on the comic pages when he speaks. It's like, that's not speech.
And Snoopy's also the most intelligent dog in history.
Right.
The most accomplished dog in history.
He wants to be a writer. He fights he's a World War fine ace, a tennis player. He can do everything just about but talk.
And the only dog that has his own penthouse that's encased in a little bitty doghouse.
Right. And not only that, he has tons of brothers and sisters, including Spike, who lives in the desert, and that's always hilarious to see. You have his Charlie Brown's other friends. You have Linus, who is too attached to his blanket. No matter what people say, he says he's gonna keep it forever. You have Lucy, who is crabby all the time with everybody.
Sister.
Right. Then later on you have the new addition of a baby brother, Rerun, who wanted a dog, but the parents won't let him have one, so he always borrows Snoopy. So he usually brings some extra comedy sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
You have Peppermint Patty, who's the tomboy, is great at all sports. And keeps calling Charlie Brown Chuck.
And her friend.
Marcy, who keeps calling her Sir, even though she says, "Stop calling me Sir!"
And you've got Sally, Charlie Brown's sister.
Mm-hmm. Who likes Linus.
And has been very sassy, the entire time that she was created.
Mm-hmm. And of course you have Franklin.
And which are more iconic characters and characters that were made during particular times.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
And Schroeder, who idolized Beethoven and wanted to be a famous piano player.
And Pigpen, who now unfortunately would be seen as politically incorrect, but it was fun.
Mm-hmm.
It was just fun. And I think that's why you don't really see Pigpen anymore.
No, we did see him in the 2015 movie, and the joke always was he was dirty all the time. Not because he was dirty or loved dirt. It's just that he just realized he just needed to embrace the dirt, because he would get clean. He would be tidy and clean, and he'd be unrecognizable. Then the minute he get outside, the dirt would just be magnetized toward him, and then he'd be dirty again, covered in mud, hair messed up, and be like he never washed. Which was always the best part of Pigpen. It's like dirt magnetized toward him no matter how much he cleaned.
And then you got the curly-haired girl that Charlie Brown had a crush on.
Right, who you never saw for quite some time until later on near the end of the television specials when they finally showed what she looked like.
Mm-hmm.
You finally saw a little red-haired girl, and they even finally gave her a name in the movie.
Right. And then you have the adults. Wah, 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 wah,
Yeah, the
wah,
teacher, the parents. You never see the parents ever, not even their distorted voices.
Right.
You have the principal, the teachers, and that's pretty much it. You see the kids a lot, and other than the This Is America Charlie Brown special, you don't ever see adults, but they do exist.
Mm-hmm. So let us know which of the Charlie Brown specials or made for TV movies are your favorite in the comments below.
Mm-hmm.
So let's now move on to the last commercially made Charlie Brown movie, which was the Peanuts movie from 2015.
Right. And we were surprised to see this because this was the first ever theatrical movie for Peanuts. A lot of people thought, oh, it already had one. No, just sometimes they put like movies they've had for TV, or they would add extra scenes and extend them and put them in the theaters, which people used to do back in the 90s and early 2000s, and that would be like a little special event. And in this one, it was just a basic plot. They didn't change a single thing about Peanuts.
Except for it was a 3D computerized movie.
And if you notice, like in Captain Underpants, they kept their original designs. They just made it look like the 2D turned to 3D and it came to life without altering their looks or making them looking like just horrendous characters.
Right.
They still had the same sense of fun and simpleness and just silliness of the original. All of the voice actors were children, not adults pretending to be children. And they sound exactly like the original people from the original run of the shows and movies. The plot was just Charlie Brown wanting to talk to the little hair girl for an hour and a half, and him working up the courage to do it, and also his friends helping him along the way, and a couple other stories with the different characters. So they kind of treated it as like a bunch of stories into one, but it never felt like you were watching a revamp or reboot. They never modernized it. You didn't know if it was modern day or not because there was no technology still. They still have Snoopy's little daydreams where he was fighting the Red Baron. They still have Schroeder and his piano, Linus in the blanket, Charlie Brown talking to dear little red hair girl. Lucy, of course, always pulling away the football because they couldn't even end the movie without doing that once. And they really did stay to the spirit of Charlie Brown, even with the entire family, the Schultz family, working on the movie with the original cast.
And one good reason for that is that Schultz's son Craig was actually the writer for the screenplay.
Right.
So I think that was a really smart move. Also, his grandson Brian was also one of the writers. So that really was a smart move because they grew up with this man. They knew him their entire lives, and they probably got to be around him when he wrote or talked about them. They knew the love he had for the characters, so they were able to capture that, and they did a wonderful job. I absolutely loved the movie. I was really surprised at how well it was done. We were really nervous. We were like, oh,
are they going to reboot it?
But from beginning to end, it was fantastic. And another, some few more fun points I'd like to point out, if that's okay, is that this movie marked the 65th anniversary of the debut of the comic and the 50th anniversary of the television special of Charlie Brown Christmas.
Wow. So it's like a Peanuts holiday for this movie release.
Right. And it actually did very well with an opening of $44 million this first weekend. And it went on to earn over $130 million in North America and $246 million worldwide, which was awesome when you think about it because, again, this is a 65-year-old concept. And they still captured the heart of people around the world, and what made it special was captured in this movie. It's a little iconoclast, and we loved it.
Yeah, it was very well done. They didn't try to modernize it or reboot it or make it for modern day kids. It was a fantastic movie, and I'm glad they stuck to the original concept. There are also the other two recent things they did that aren't really that known because they weren't as big hits. The last TV movie they made, which they released on DVD later, was Happiness is a Warm Blanket, Charlie Brown, which focused more on Linus, and they were finally going to try to get him to get rid of the blanket. At one point, they did in the early strips. He had finally stopped because he had lost the blanket. He said he finally got over the blanket, and then when Charlie Brown found it, he went back into the habit because he found it. So they did a whole movie where everyone was trying to get him off the blanket, and he kept saying, "No, I won't do it." And the odd part about it, it didn't feel like Charlie Brown. It was very strange how it was made. And we were thinking this is how the Peanuts movie was going to be made. It actually was reversed. The characters were a little more snarky in here. It wasn't like the funny type where they would just say some lines or you knew the things that were coming out of their mouths from the comic strip and it had charm. It was a slightly, surprisingly more mean-spirited than they were used to. Even Lucy was a little more overtoned, but we were glad to see that they still had other TV specials coming out. And then lastly would be the new Peanuts series that's supposed to be on a Cartoon Network, which we're not even sure they're airing now, which is just the retelling of the comic strips, and they're just animating them made in Canada. We got the original people from the movie to redo the voices for it. And they have the layout and the credits and the backgrounds are all stylized exactly like the comic strips, and they're using flash animation to do it. Unfortunately, for some reason, they weren't as funny, and these are going off the original comic strips, which are hilarious, but for some reason, they were not as joyful to watch as it was reading it. It was almost hypnotizing. It was like putting you to sleep, and not in a way where it's terrible. It's just was very dull. It was too calm, too relaxing. There was no zaniness going on with Snoopy and his finding the Red Baron, or them fighting with the blanket, or it wasn't, or them going to camp and competing with each other, or the baseball games. Unfortunately, it was missing all the comedic parts to it. It was just mostly animating the comic strips, and that was the entire show. We were glad to see they still wanted to do some more stuff with Peanuts as success in the movie, but unfortunately it couldn't keep our attention because we kept falling asleep within 5 minutes.
Right, didn't capture that. And maybe it was because they didn't, maybe they didn't keep Craig and Brian on.
Exactly.
Maybe they were just there for the movie, and then they thought, okay, we got this, thank you, we'll take it from here. And you definitely took it from there.
They would even have these in between beats, between one joke to another. They would do these little 5-second jokes with Snoopy or Woodstock, and you hear beatboxing, doom 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 in the background. I'm like, is that their modern thing with it? It didn't even make sense.
Right. Well, I think for me, the most interesting thing about the history of this franchise is that originally Charles Schulz, when he created this comics, they were not meant for children at all. They actually were meant for adults and to depict the nuances of daily life. And they were just putting forth his feelings in an animated form.
Right.
And somehow, some way, as life seems to do, it struck a chord with children. And children were the ones who really took this to the next level. I mean, adults loved it, but when they learned that there was a children's market, they began targeting it. And that's how we ended up getting all the lovable specials and things that we have. But it was never meant for children in the beginning. So I think that's pretty ironic that this iconic franchise has become loved by children of all ages.
Right. You even know the iconic music they play during the Christmas special. You every time that is the Peanuts theme. That's the national anthem for Peanuts.
It's one of the most easily recognizable pieces of music. As soon as you hear it, you know, and you start doing your head. And last but not least, before we get to favorite characters, recently, and I would have to say recently, because it was probably within the last month or maybe 5 weeks, the hilarious Jimmy Fallon. Forgive me, Jimmy Kimmel, you're hilarious too. But Jimmy Fallon did this
they did a parody of Riverdale, but instead of Riverdale, they used the Peanuts characters in their place, and the cast of Jimmy Fallon were the Peanuts characters pretending to be teenagers, and they were grown adults.
Oh, yes, and they're like in their 40s and 50s, and it's hilarious. And if by the time you're hearing this, we can find a link to it on YouTube, we will definitely have it, or you can just click on it in the cards that pop up, so you can see just how hilarious this skit actually is.
Yeah.
You don't even have to be a watcher of Riverdale. We watched one episode and decided it wasn't for us.
Right. So if you're an Archie fan, yeah.
But you don't even have to have watched the show Riverdale. If you're an Archie fan, then you're way older than I am, or Rascal, and you're not gonna like this parody, so don't watch it.
Right.
If that doesn't apply to you, then you will find this parody hilarious, and we will make sure if there's a link to watch it, that it will pop up so that you can watch it after.
Yeah.
Okay, let's finish this off with favorite characters.
Right.
Snoopy, my favorite of all the characters is Snoopy. There's something I love about each one, but the rascal Snoopy, I love him. And he's not the serious one for one time.
Oh, he wants to be serious. He plays a serious character sometimes. Like he's a detective or a writer or the World War flying ace or a British or a soldier in the Continental Army. He's something every time you turn around. I think my favorite would be Charlie Brown. Because he always keeps trying, even though he keeps failing. And there were times, if you remember reading the comic strips that I've bought from the library hundreds of times as a kid, there were times where he succeeded. He did win a baseball game. He did fly his kite finally. He did sell his Joe Schobalding baseball, even though he was the only other fan out there. Only thing he didn't do was kick that football, which he'll never do. He finally talked to the little red-haired girl and learned her name and was able to become friends with her. It was a victory for Charlie Brown. He just will never kick that football ever.
And you made me think of one thing. You were talking about those two specials after the movie. One thing we really didn't like is that Lucy had turned cruel. It wasn't a matter of her just being a kid and slightly,
and she was crabby.
Necrosis and crabby. But in the other two specials following the movie, she was cruel. She was mean. She was vicious. And they had made her totally unlikable. And that was the thing about the original Charlie Brown characters. You love them all. You have your favorites. But you love every character.
Right.
Even Lucy, you love Lucy. You want her around. You don't want her to go away.
And she had her nice moments.
Right, and you look for her, as you said, every spring doing that thing with the football. But her new personification they did in the two specials after wasn't Lucy. And I think that was a big part of what made it absolutely, totally unenjoyable.
Right.
So, if you happen to see either the Peanuts movie from 2015 or the two specials after, let us know what you think in the comments below. And please, please feel free to let us know whom's your favorite character and why. And
you might even see them as the floats in the Macy's Thanksgiving Parade, too.
That's true. So, thank you for joining us for this trip down Peanuts Lane. Thank you, Charles M. Schultz. Even though you're not here, we truly, truly are grateful for the love that you've had in writing these strips and creating these characters and just staying with it and loving it to the very end. Thank you very much.
Yes. I'm Rascal Entertainment.
And I'm Mom Entertainment.
Have a fantastic day.
Peace.
Good grief.
And reporters sitting, flashing lights, trying to walk around, man, who the hell are you? What you wanna do? Well, man, it's on you. Man, it's on you. Met her in my dreams, she was my queen. A castle in the mountaintops, rivers and streams. Plucking sunlight from the sky in my pocket, give it to you later on in the form of a locket.